It was a very visually appealing segment, but I still have my issues with this feud.
I kind of feel the same way Jay does. It was very visually appealing. This was very Lucha Underground-esque. I think generally wrestling fans have been opened up in the last few years to this kind of visual presentation where we can kind of suspend disbelief that there's this ethereal, supernatural way of presenting an angle, and it doesn't have to be strictly wrestling based. But I do have to question, why would Randy Orton wait this long to say he changes his mind and he's going to actually face Bray Wyatt after the supposed number one contender to Bray Wyatt's championship has been mentioned? Wouldn't you think Randy Orton, being as cunning as he has been and having played Bray Wyatt as well as he has, wouldn't you think he would wait until that other person is out of the way so it doesn't impede his attempt to go after the title?
And that's the thing about it. Like, this whole thing, it seemed very weird. And when you say out of nowhere, that could be a good thing because it's unpredictable. But then when you don't get any kind of cues from a storyline, as a storyline is developing, you don't get any kind of cues or any kind of foreshadowing of a moment like this happening. It seems as if WWE just did something like this for it to be spectacular, to catch everyone's attention. But this is like a lake that's a mile wide and an inch deep. It looks wonderful on the surface, but there is absolutely no depth to what's going on. And that's been my number one problem with this entire feud between Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. There is absolutely no substance there at all.
But I will say this, though. The one thing that they did do, and I think this is what they wanted to accomplish, was it got me intrigued. And the thing is, the crowd, if you actually listen, they were eating that whole thing up. So it's like they pretty much accomplished like what they set out. And here's the thing. I thought about this for the last few weeks since Orton won the Rumble. They started this feud back in September, because they were supposed to go one-on-one at Backlash, but they didn't have because Orton was still hurt. Then they had the match at No Mercy. That was a shit of a match. Shouldn't have main event still, but they did main event it. And I didn't think about this at the time, but you knew they had to main event for a reason. Not just because Harper came back, but because you knew these guys were going to be used. Then at Survivor Series, they were, along with Harper, the last three sole survivors for Team SmackDown. The team had some momentum. Then they went to TLC, and then they won the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Even though I don't think they should have lost them early, you could have spread that out even more because of the results that we're seeing. But they end up losing them, and then dissension in the Wyatts occurs. Then we've seen what Harper could do, and I really want to talk about him later. But yeah, we see what he could do, and now everything's just come full circle. Now, when you think about it, we always get on WWE again for not coming up with at least outside of the box stuff. And when was the last time that we actually saw a legit feud that was built for months and months and months? Not even prior to January. Let's going all the way back to November or December when they start building the feuds for Mania. I haven't seen anything like this since, shout out to SmackDown 03, since the build to Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle.
Well, here's the problem that I have with that. Of course, WWE, it'd be great if they could build up a feud for months and months and months, and we can see it develop from one point to the next. But guess what? The feud actually has to be good. The feud actually has to evoke some kind of emotion out of you. The feud actually has to be effective as well. I'm not going to sit here and give them credit just because I can look at a piece of paper and see these bullet points of things that they accomplished and developments that happened. If I sat back and I watched every single one of those things happen, I witnessed that as a viewer of the program, but if it didn't evoke any kind of emotion in me, then I'm not going to give WWE credit for telling that story. We can sit here and say they accomplished all of these things, but it didn't do much for me to a point where I'm sitting here right now and saying, what are they even going off of? Everything that Randy Orton said in that segment on SmackDown, that was old shit. This stuff that they pulled out of thin air about Sister Abigail, she's dead and she's buried here. Of course, that's connected to the mythos of Bray Wyatt, but there's no substance to who Randy Orton is and how he is connected to Bray Wyatt right now.
That's where I question the logic of this, because it's one of those things where we don't know that Randy Orton's character is aware of any of this. Much more, this is my own interpretation. I always took Sister Abigail to be a deity, rather than and it's cool. I guess it's
big words.
It's
a god,
like a goddess. Yeah, I've always interpreted Sister Abigail to be some kind of goddess or a metaphor for some kind of guiding spirit that Bray Wyatt has.
And I didn't even think about that. It's like they just rushed right through that. Like, oh shit, well, Sister Abigail, that's a real person, and they had to provide
some kind of event, or they had to provide some kind of location, because otherwise, if Randy Orton just said, by beating you, I'm going to vanquish the spirit of Sister Abigail, visually it wouldn't have been as pleasant, because what they easily could have done, this is something that Randy Orton feuds tend to fall back on, and this is why I appreciate their attempt. What they easily could have done would have been just not mention anything for the next few weeks, let it let it slow burn, if you will, and then have Randy turn on him, turn into a Viper, pull the Viper card, and then just turn around and RKO him. And for them not doing that, I appreciate what they tried to do here. It's just, I have to question the logic, because once again, Randy Orton's not part of that Bray Wyatt mythos. The fact that he's aware of all this, and to just establish that, is Bray Wyatt a murderer now? Is there some kind of, was Sister Abigail an actual person? That's where I question where any of this is coming from.
Here's the thing that you're forgetting though, Dalton. Once you're indoctrinated into the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt takes you on a tour. He has this pamphlet. And it's like an orientation. Okay, here's where Sister Abigail is, and here's where the Wyatt Family Compound is. So that's why Randy Orton knows where everything is. He went through orientation.
Here's a good question though: who came off as the heel and who came off as the face in that whole thing? Seeing
Bray Wyatt crying.
Yeah,
that didn't seem heelish to me, because you have to wonder, for Bray Wyatt to establish himself as the heel, if he is to be the true heel, and he's crying because Randy Orton burned his shack down, what the hell does Bray Wyatt have to do to out-heel Randy Orton?
People, that was your WWE champion this past Tuesday night. The fat, bearded redneck that is your WWE champion. He's crying like a whiny bitch. But I did feel sympathetic towards Bray Wyatt, because here's the thing. In our eyes, we see Orton as the heel, but to the casuals, he's the face.
I'd say even to the whoever we are, shit, he's a face too.
I don't know too many faces that commit arson. And by the way, the word is arson, not arsony, Daniel Bryan and Renee Young. That pissed me off so much. That's just an insider about me, because I happen to write law sites for a living. So when I heard that shit, I'm like, arsony?
Arsony?
It's not a word.
Did he steal something too? Maybe it was larceny and arson.
On fire.
Yeah.
But again...